It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.
We are no longer counting down the days. We are now counting down the hours to the NFL draft. It has gotten that close. Appreciate you jumping aboard with the Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys. John McMullen, Jody McDonald. Yeah, we've been waiting for this for a while, and we've still got a little bit more to wait, but it's much less than it has been. Johnny Mac, the draft is almost upon us. You'll be at the NovaCare Complex. I'll be here broadcasting for CBS. But, man, we got a party going on down in Atlantic City with our JAKIB Media Stream family.
Yeah, how about that? The JAKIB Media Draft Special from the Ocean Casino and Resort, theoceanac.com. You see it on the screen there. You can get all the information there. Maybe sneak in on the luxury bus to get down there. JAKIB Media is taking you in luxury to the Ocean AC, and you can get involved with that, Jody, by saying Jody Mac wants me on the bus, McMullen wants me on the bus. Just email Krause at jakibmedia.com. You see it on your screen, Krause at jakibmedia.com.
Now, do you know when the emails have to be received by? I'm guessing it's sometime today because you got to.
Yeah, it's got to be. There's got to be a cutoff point. Maybe Tone can figure that out for us. But I would get it in as early as possible. So if you're on the stream right now, just email Krause right now, Krause at jakibmedia.com. Say, Jody Mac wants me on that bus. Jody Mac wants me on that bus. You might win. Mike Quick's going to be there. Seth Jr. is going to be there. Our guys, D. Gunn, Rob Ellis, Devin Caney, is going to be there as well. So it's going to be a fun time down at the Ocean AC Resort. And I wish I could be there, but I have to be at the NovaCare.
Understood. You and I both have to, unfortunately, do different work for the Eagles' upcoming draft. John, a lot of rumors yesterday flying that after the day before where the big talk was everybody's looking to trade down. It's going to get crowded because nobody wants to pick at the top of the draft, and everybody's looking to trade down. And these are always great rumors, but remind everyone every time, takes two to tango. You can declare yourself, listen, I don't love my draft spot, so I want to move down. Well, who are you moving down to? Who are you cutting a deal with? To move down, someone needs to move up. That's the way the balance works. So I love when everybody wants to trade down. Well, then not everybody's going to get what they want because everybody can't trade down. Because if everybody wants to trade down, that means not enough teams want to trade up. Well, we might have one of the teams that does want to trade up right here in Philadelphia because the rumors were flying pretty hot and heavy yesterday that is something that the Birds are investigating. We know Howie Roseman told us in his media availability last week, they get all this worked out ahead of time. Any potential first-round draft pick, they're going to talk it through before we ever get to draft day, certainly before the clock ever ticks for pick number one. So the Eagles have had these conversations. How intensive they've been, how much do the Eagles like the negotiation they've already had with other teams, that we don't know. That we won't find out till tomorrow night when we actually get there. But are you buying that the Eagles are one of the strongest teams with a desire to actually move up in the first round?
Yes and no. Yes, in a targeted move up. I know there was a couple reports saying they might go way up to 5 and 6 or whatever it was, but I don't see that. I think it's, we talked about it last year a lot because it's so recent when Devontae Smith moving up from 12 to 10, but they did it with Andre Dillard in 2019. They did it really with Fletcher Cox and whatever that was, 2012-ish or something around that range. So, when they like a player, they'll go up to get them. And it's generally, as I said, a more targeted fashion. So, the player I'm focused on most, everybody probably knows it by now, is Jordan Davis. I don't think he gets to the Eagles at 15. So if they're in a position where they have to go ahead of Baltimore, for instance, and Houston's been one of those teams that's willing to listen and trade out of 13, could I see that move up? Yeah, I could definitely see that kind of move up. As far as people talking about going up to, uh, you know, get Ahmad Gardner early in the draft or Derek Stingley early in the draft, I'm not as much buying that part of it.
I had a good call last night on WIP. Guy said, Jody, I'll lay out the trade that's going to happen for the Eagles. I said, I really like your line of logic and the pieces fitting to why both parties could be interested. I just didn't think the value that he was looking to give up the Eagles was enough. It's close as per the Jimmy Johnson value chart, but I don't think that the team the Eagles would be dealing with would pull the trigger. We are talking about moving up significantly to number 6, which is owned by the Carolina Panthers. The GM yesterday said that, there are quarterbacks that could be worthy to be taken at 6. BS flag. Mm-hmm. Don't buy it. Don't believe it. Don't think they're taking a quarterback at 6. Would they like to take a quarterback? Yeah, I believe so. Would they like to take a quarterback at a spot like, middle of the first round, 15 or somewhere thereabouts? Yeah, they'll probably still have their choice of quarterback at 15. And if Carolina likes one of two, a Pickett or a Willis, I guarantee you one of the two is left at 15. And there's a very good chance no quarterback has been taken by 15. So Carolina could just jump in there and get the quarterback they want. They don't have a second-round pick. They don't have a third-round pick, which is a deterrent because if you do the draft chart thing, what you're going to potentially give up isn't going to quite get you there. So if the Panthers could put something else in to balance out the deal, you would say, okay, well, maybe that worked. They don't have those out. That's why they're willing to trade down, is because they've got nothing between their first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. But if the Eagles offered 15 plus their second-round pick plus their higher third-round pick, it would come up just short of the value of the number 6 overall pick. I think Carolina would turn it down. But if they didn't, if they said, all right, Howie Roseman, you got a deal, would you trade 15, 51, 83 to get the 6? Now at 6, here's how we'll do this. Tell me the players in John McMullen's mock draft, one and only mock draft on SportsIllustrated.com, that you had coming off the board in the top 5.
I had Ike Ekwonu, Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker, I believe Jermaine Johnson, and I'm trying to pull up my draft. Who would I have 5? I believe I had Evan Neal, or it might have been Charles Cross at 5. So one of the 2 tackles. So those are the players.
So 3 DTs and 2 OTs.
3 edge rushers, 2
edge. I said DT. Yeah. My bad. Thank you for correcting me. So in other words, if the Eagles got the 6, they would have their choice of one of the edge guys. Who you had Thibodeau falling down?
Yeah. I had Thibodeau falling. And that would be, if the Eagles are going to go up that high, I would think they would want Thibodeau more than Gardner or Stingley.
Oh, ahead of the 2 corners.
Yeah. If they're going up that high. I don't think they're going up that high. Plus, we can talk about the Carolina. Carolina is interesting, the Carolina part of it, because of this reason, Jody. And this is the reason I didn't have them taking a quarterback. Matt Rule doesn't want a young quarterback. Now, I don't know how much power he has left, but he's coaching for his job. The last thing he wants is to roll out a rookie quarterback. If he has any heft in that organization left, and I don't know if he does. I mean, he might not have any. And Scott Fitterer might say, screw it, I'm taking a quarterback. You're going to be out of here next year anyway. But if he has any power left in that organization, he's going to want a Baker Mayfield type to try to win football games and try to make that trade day 2 or day 3 of the draft. and take an offensive tackle. Now, so I don't think Carolina, from the perspective of the head coach, is very high on quarterback at all, because he's got to win. He's got to win now, right now, and that's not the way to win right now.
All right, so let me ask you that question. You think Matt Rule has that juice right now?
I don't know. That part I have no idea. I mean, I will say
it's a yay or nay question.
Well,
here,
I didn't pick a quarterback. I didn't pick a quarterback, so my estimation is they're not taking a quarterback that high in the draft, and they're going to go with, they've been really linked to Cross a lot. They like that particular player. And, some of the Evan Neal rumors, that's interesting. We got to get into those because they don't make any sense. But so I think you have the Giants and the Panthers trying to get people to say, well, we want Cross. Maybe they really want Neal or Ekwonu. And I think you're having this bandying back and forth. But it's tough to me to believe an NFL organization is going into a season saying, well, just what I said, the head coach isn't going to be here next year anyway, so I'm going to do what I want. If that happens, you have a terrible organization. Everything's left to, everything's on the table. So I can't say it's not going to happen. I can't say they're not going to take a quarterback, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And the fact that Matt Rule needs to win football games right now.
He does, but I just don't think he's got the juice, Johnny Mac. And if your point is, well, then they should have fired him during the offseason. Yeah, I think you're right. That's what should have happened. I like Matt Rule. I think he's a good coach. I'm surprised that he hasn't had more success. His first year, they were in every single game. They just couldn't finish it off. I expected a step forward this year. It didn't happen. And yeah, I just don't think he's got the juice, despite the fact that they gave him a
7-year contract. 7 years, Jody. 7 years. Never done before. And David Tepper's got more money than God, so it's not like he can't afford to pay it all. But you don't want to leave that much on the contract. So it is an interesting dichotomy with the Panthers, the GM, the head coach, but the head coach doesn't want a quarterback. That's what I'm basing it on. And you might be right. He might not have no juice. He may have no juice left whatsoever, but I can't imagine that they're thinking quarterback right now in the first round of the draft.
Yeah, I think they are, but I think they're looking to do so. That's why this trade down with the Eagles makes as much sense as it does. They realize that none of the quarterbacks, despite the general manager looking the camera right in the eye yesterday going, oh, yeah, we've got a couple of guys that would be meritorious of the sixth pick at the quarterback position. No, you don't. You don't have any. That's why you're looking to trade down. And the Eagles could be a perfect slot if you're Howie Roseman. And the offering price, and Carolina accepts it, is 15 plus your second plus your top third. You pulling the trigger on that?
No, I'm not, for this reason. They have so many needs, Jody. I mean, you're talking about building, right? We're in a building phase. We're in a transitional phase. Now we're in a building phase. That we're not ready, crowd. We're not ready to do this. We're not ready to do that. Well, you're not ready to make a targeted move up for a player of that caliber, because you need a cornerback, you need a wide receiver, you need an edge rusher, you need a defensive tackle, you need a safety. You need those day 2 picks. If anything, I want more day 2 picks. I want what they have 5 in the first 101. I want 6. You guys called it the building phase. Well, then I don't want to give up everything for Kayvon Thibodeau or Derek Stingley Jr. or Ahmad Gardner. I don't want to miss out on those other positions I still have to fill because of the bad maneuvering when it comes to wide receivers, and the fact that you don't have a safety net with Steve Nelson anymore. You haven't been able to get anything done at safety. Now maybe you bring in Honey Badger after the draft. You can go about it a bunch of different ways, but and then bottom line, Jody, I don't like the players that much. In other words, let's start at corner. I don't think Trent McDuffie is that much worse than Ahmad Gardner or Derek Stingley. In a lot of ways, he might be safer. It's probably not as exciting. Probably doesn't have the same type of ceiling. And while the edge rushers drop off, because I don't think they like Karlaftis at all, I think we can cross that one out. So I don't think any of the 4 edge rushers are going to be there. But, I mean, I think Jordan Davis could be every bit the player for Philadelphia that Kayvon Thibodeau could be. Maybe not as sexy, but in a lot of ways more important for what Jonathan Gannon wants to accomplish. And again, you can get it later. So I don't see the big drop-off from going up and getting one of the players people are targeting high in the draft versus players you can get, probably a targeted move up for Davis. Probably you can stand pat and get McDuffie. I don't see the value. Then you're getting the other players with the other picks. So I don't see this huge increased value from jumping up that high.
It's an interesting, just because if the Eagles feel differently than you, John, that there is a major difference between a Sauce Gardner and a McDuffie, and they're willing to pay that price. I think Carolina is looking to do exactly what we're discussing. Take a quarterback by trading down. Not at 6, but taking a quarterback if they can get into the middle of the first round, which is right where the Eagles are. The question is, what is the price going to be? All right, we'll continue to toss that around. We do want to look at the entire draft. We always look at it through Eagle-colored glasses, but there'll be a bunch of picks if the Eagles don't trade up before the Eagles ever go. We're going to discuss all that with our next guest, Russ Brown. We had him on a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was almost a month ago. From Cover One Sports, going to hop aboard, give us his evaluation now, 30-plus hours away from the NFL draft. He'll join us here on Birds 365 next.
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, zero sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You got your Maga Mac guys here on Birds 365, McMullen and McDonald. We are lucky enough to be able to be joined by our buddy from cover1.net, Russ Brown, who was on with us, like I said, about a month ago. Did an outstanding job. Glad to have him back. All right, Russ, we know what we think we know what the teams are doing right now. Last minute preparation, conversation, talking about potential drafts. What do? You got your last mock out. You're not gonna be changing it or updating it. What are you doing for the next 30 plus hours?
Well, pretty much it's have a cocktail, relax a little bit, maybe do a little Kentucky Derby pressure, not this weekend, but next weekend. So, we'll see how we do there. But no, I mean, I try to get this done, normally the day before the draft. I enter it into the, the national contest or whatever. Last year finished top 15. So we're going to try to do the same thing this year. And last year was my first time in that. So now it's just, basically get all the hate mail from fans that don't like the draft picks that I gave.
I love the hate mail, Russ.
Yep. But other than that, I mean, I think it's just kind of hanging out, maybe doing some last, bit of film that I need to watch on any types of players or rewatch some stuff and just kind of relax and enjoy the ride here.
So I'm always interested with draft guys, how you put together your sort of final mock. Is it these are the players Russ Brown likes and thinks are a fit for these particular teams, or do you take into account what you think the teams think and what their sort of process is? How do you formulate your particular mock draft?
Well, it's kind of a mix of both and kind of a little bit of everything in between. Like I try to connect the dots of maybe what certain team reporters are saying, what maybe certain scouts have told me, what maybe certain colleagues have told me. And in some way, shape, or form, I try to formulate it into what the final product might be. So, over a couple weeks ago, I was told that Evan Neal is potentially the top guy on the Jaguars board. And then over the weekend, I hear that Sauce Gardner is the guy for the Texans, but then within the last, and again, there's could be a lot of smoke to it, but within the last 48 hours, I get told that the Texans really like Derek Stingley and that they could potentially be looking to move 13 to get, potentially one of the offensive tackles if they fall. Maybe that trade spot is Carolina, as you guys were talking about Philadelphia, but then also, there was the conversation of, well, the Texans like Stingley, they believe that it's going to go Walker and Thibodeau. So I just kind of roll with that and put the mock draft together because I feel like that was the most concrete information that I had received up to this point. So kind of went from there and then just, it's kind of the team fits and player fits and where I think they should go. And, it's just a little bit of both, I guess.
Any angst after you hit send? How quickly does that first text come in and you go, I wish I would have put this guy in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I had like the Evan Neal at 1 thing kind of put together, and I'm a betting man. So, at the time I put it together, he was plus 1,600 to be the first pick. And I was feeling pretty good about, the information of him being that first pick. But then it moved to like plus 2,500. And I'm like, well, is there still a chance for that offensive tackle? So as I was getting ready to submit that one, I was like, nope, I'm going to just delete this whole thing and restart. So I put together 3,100 words of just pure pain and pretty much put it together. But yeah, there's those things, like there's been the rumor right now that Debo is going to get dealt to the Jets and, they're going to give up a haul. And that's been the rumor for the last, day or so. So it's like, well, I'm going to still have him keep the 10th pick, but could we see San Francisco slide in there and have that 10th pick? We absolutely could, but there might be a little regret, but I've done worse in life to have a little bit more regret than a mock draft.
One of the reasons your number might have gone up as significantly as it did for Evan Neal being the number 1 overall pick. There was a rumor floating yesterday that both Neal and Raymond, 2 first-round offensive linemen, had failed medicals for several NFL teams. One report went so far as to say they're off teams' boards, which the last time I remember that happened was DJ Metcalf and a whole bunch of teams, including the Philadelphia Eagles, wish that hadn't been the case on the report that they had. Immediately, Neil and his people come out, say, I have no idea what they're talking about. He hasn't missed one workout. He hasn't missed one scheduled visit. Where this, what is coming from, it's just not true. We know leading up to the draft, there is a pretty good content of misinformation. You think that's what this is? There's a team sitting there somewhere in the first round that wants Evan Neal badly, sees your mock and says, oh my God, he's going number one. We have to put some info out there that he's injured. He can't play. He's going to die. We got to get our hands on this kid. How much of that do you have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens all the time. And I think that's one of those cases where, teams want a specific player. And I mean, because deep down, none of us really know what these teams have on their board unless we're sitting in that room. And unless, of course, there's a very credible source like a player's agent or a team, a certain type of agent or whatever it might be, or certain scout. But with that, I mean, yeah, I could very well see that maybe that team is a team like Carolina, or it could be a team like Houston. I mean, like I mentioned, that's kind of the source that I had heard, that's what they think that's going to happen at 1 and 2 of Walker and Thibodeau, so that they can take Stingley. And then, of course, are they saying this about Evan Neal so that if he falls to 6 or 7, they maybe move up and grab him? It's really tough to say, but at the same time, I've heard that they really like George Karlaftis at 13. So it's very tough to kind of figure out, because I mean, it makes sense if they want to go that route and they just kind of revamp their defense. But yeah, you deal with that stuff all the time where we're, especially at the top of the draft, not so much in the middle part of the first round and stuff, because that's always kind of a crapshoot. But I'm sure it happens through the NFL circles more than it probably would on Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah, I've never understood that kind of stuff. Where for this reason, Russ, we're the ones who don't have the medicals, and by we, I'm talking about reporters or draft people. We don't have the medicals. The teams have the medicals. They have the information. So who are they trying to fool? And the second part is team doctors, because you can get the medicals that everybody gets, and individual team doctors could then go, well, I'm a little bit more concerned with this than somebody else. But I've yet to meet the doctor. I always joke, there's never been an unsuccessful surgery. If you look through all the newspapers in the history of time, there's never been an unsuccessful surgery. So doctors are not one to say that, oh, I'm going to hedge my bet because somebody else. I mean, they're very, very competent people. The subterfuge I understand, and I'm going to use Charles Cross for this example, because everybody loves Charles Cross. The Giants love Charles Cross. The Panthers love Charles Cross, supposedly. Those are the teams that I think want Evan Neal and are hoping the other one takes Charles Cross. That's the kind of subterfuge. I never got the medical stuff. They have all the information. Who are they trying to pull except people like me, which is great, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day. The NFL teams have this information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you bring up a great point that those two teams sitting kind of right in between each other, that they could very well be trying to, I don't want to say play chicken, but call each other's bluff in a sense of, hey, you're going to do this or you're going to do that. And I think that's very true. And it could be very spot on. I mean, the Charles Cross stuff to the Giants came out relatively early. And I think that stuff came out right around the combine. And I've been kind of hearing that a lot. But again, there could be a lot of smoke to that. But sometimes where there's smoke, there is fire. So it will be interesting on what happens at that 5th pick if they get that opportunity to land Cross. But if, let's say, an Aiden Hutchinson is there or a Kayvon Thibodeau is there, I mean, if that's the case, if one of those guys are there and they really value that edge rusher, could they go that route? But also, Sauce Gardner's an interesting one too. I mean, he, as I said, was projected maybe to go 3 to Houston. And if he doesn't go 3 to Houston, does he really go 4 to the Jets? If he passes the Jets, I mean, it sounded like the Giants were very interested in him, which makes a lot of sense with Martindale's, man coverage press type defense. But beyond that, I mean, does Sauce start to fall down the board because of the run of the tackles and maybe some type of trade on something? So it's really going to be interesting. And again, is it one of those things like you mentioned where these teams are just kind of messing around with each other saying, we really like this guy, so they could ultimately land a guy like even a Sauce Gardner. So we'll see how it plays out for sure.
Russ, last year's draft first round, high picks, wide receiver position. Jamar Chase goes 5, Jalen Waddle goes 6. Eagles take Devontae Smith at 10. I've seen people say that if any of those three were, all three of those wide receivers were in this year's draft, they would be drafted before any wide receiver that will be picked this year. Do you agree with that? And what does that say about this year's wide receiver class?
I don't know if they would all get drafted before some of those guys. I mean, certainly they could, but at the same time, I mean, like Chris Olave is so consistent. Drake London's got this, 50-50 ball potential, and there's a lot to love with this class. So, I mean, I guess it's more so different strokes for different folks here, and really pick your flavor of ice cream that you want on the receiver. But I mean, sure, I could Devontae Smith go first? Could Jalen Waddle go first? Sure, those things could happen. Jamar Chase as well. Those guys obviously very talented receivers, so I'm not going to discredit them, but it still wouldn't surprise me if we had just a big group of those receivers together, if it ended up going like a Jamar Chase and then a Drake London or something like that. It just wouldn't surprise me at all. But at the same time, I mean, in this draft, I mean, I don't know if we would see the top 7 picks be a wide receiver. So I guess that kind of tells you that maybe it is a little bit of a weaker draft if we don't see one in the top 5 like we did last year with Jamar Chase. But at the same time, I mean, I think Atlanta's kind of that sweet spot for that first receiver. So is it Drake London? Is it Garrett Wilson? Those have been the most common names to them. Or do they go with just pure speed with Jamison Williams? So I think there's a lot of different scenarios that Atlanta's probably going to mess around with. But ultimately, I think that they're going to get the pick of the litter when it comes to wide receivers.
Russ, I'm going to give you 3 names of guys that really from the start of the process, everybody had sort of pegged as first round picks, but now it seems like they might be in danger of falling out of the first day. One you already mentioned, and he might be the biggest swing from teams I hear is George Karlaftis. Some teams like him. Some teams don't even think he belongs near the top of the draft. So he's one. Tyler Linderbaum, the undersized center. He's another. Nakobe Dean, the linebacker from Georgia. Those 3 players, I think, are in danger of falling out of the first round. Am I crazy, or is it a possibility?
It is very possible. I mean, it sounds crazy because when you look at just their overall tape, I mean, those guys are kind of the dominant players at their position. But I'll start with Karlaftis just simply because I don't per se see a true first round player. I would, if I was a team in the back end with maybe multiple picks like Kansas City or Green Bay, I would potentially take him. But when you watch him, he is so far from what he was back in 2019. 2020, he had COVID. He battled through that. And I think maybe, I'm not saying there's side effects from that, but it definitely looks like he's not the same player. I mean, there was times where he would hit like a push-pull move or a forklift club type move where, he's upending basically offensive tackles and clubbing and ripping his way through to generate pressure or sack the quarterback. And this year it was just like all power all the time. And he didn't look as fluid as I thought people said he was. And as far as like a guy like Arnold Ebiketie or even a Boye Mafe, he didn't look as fluid. So I think if there's maybe any concerns with any type of medical, as we've talked about with offensive tackles, is there any concern here with Karlaftis? There certainly could be. And we see it every year. Guys fall kind of out of that first round, and it makes a very interesting second day of the draft. So I think it could be the same thing with Karlaftis. We saw it with AJ Epinesa a few years back when he came out of Iowa, ended up going to Buffalo. So I think that one's, very interesting. Tyler Linderbaum, that one's a bit of a head scratcher for me. I think it's, I think it's more so positional value there. He's only going to be pegged as a center in the NFL. He probably will never play guard. I mean, he's very limited with his overall frame. He's listed at 6'2", 296. He might be able to get to 300 pounds. But ultimately, if Garrett Bradbury can go in the first round, I see no reason to why Tyler Linderbaum can. He's a terrific reach blocker, and he's certainly somebody that I think when you look at just overall technique and leverage and how he wins there, it's a big win for a team. So I think Cincinnati would be kind of that team that would make a lot of sense for him at 31. I know they have Ted Karras from New England, but they could easily play him at left guard or right guard and easily just put Tyler Linderbaum as a plug-and-play starter.
Well, real quick, before you get to Nakobe, Russ, does the lack of success for Bradbury, does that hurt Linderbaum?
Yeah, and it could. I mean, it very well could, because if you see a guy get to the NFL and maybe you see, similar projections because of overall body type or play style, if it doesn't transition to immediate success, maybe that is why teams are being a little bit hesitant. But when you just look at, a team like the Bengals, even the Packers, I mean, there's just so many different scenarios there in the back end where I think teams could always use interior offensive line help. Even Tampa Bay, I mean, Ryan Jensen can't play forever. So if that's the case, I mean, I think there's plenty of landing spots for a player like Linderbaum. And then who was the last name
Nakobe Dean.
Oh yeah, Nakobe Dean. So with him, I mean, I would be surprised if he wasn't a Detroit Lion. I think he's pick 32 or 34 for them. It's the only team that he's, I think, visited with, as a top 30 visit, which I know top 30 visits really aren't a thing, but it is important to kind of track those things down. But I don't understand what's the big deal with him as far as outside of maybe medicals with his knee, him not running. There's, questions that he runs maybe a sub 4.7, which isn't ideal, but he plays a lot faster than that. And I think that's important. So I look at him from a character perspective and just from an overall play style. I don't know why a team would pass on him. He would be the top linebacker for me. And if I'm we mention the Eagles all the time as a potential landing spot for a linebacker. If I'm the Eagles, I'm taking Nakobe Dean. I think I've even told McMahon this a couple times on his national show. So I would do that if it was me. But yeah, realistically, I could see him falling out of the first round. But I don't think he'll last much longer than 34.
Two specific players who, quote unquote, run slow but play fast are Hamilton and Dean. I think there was a dancer by that name way back in the 30s. I'm not sure. They can dance on my team because they can both just flat out play. Don't care what the stopwatch said. I watch enough film. I watch them make dominating plays on the collegiate level. I think they'll do on this the same on the pro level. So if either one of those guys landed in Philadelphia, I think the Eagles defense would immediately be upgraded. I want to stay on the defensive side because we get split opinions on this. I need yours. The top two defensive tackles in this draft played side by side last year. Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis, both from University of Georgia. Different types of players, despite the fact that they play the same position. The position within the position is a little bit different. I know it depends on fit and scheme and what the defensive coordinator wants to do, but just generally speaking, who's a better defensive tackle, Devontae Wyatt or Jordan Davis?
I mean, it is close. They both play the game a little bit differently for sure. I would lean into just Jordan Davis because of, as we talk about with Trayvon Walker, there's so much, with traits and athleticism there that you want to bet on and the upside there that teams are going to bet on, and maybe ultimately the Jaguars do. With Jordan Davis, it's kind of a similar thing. He's kind of pegged as this only 2-down interior defensive lineman, but it's more so because they didn't need to play him on third down because they had so many different players and it's such a deep rotation up front. So it was one of those things where I think if a team in the NFL gets him, he's going to see opportunities to play third down because why wouldn't he? He takes up so much space and he eats up double teams left and right. That's going to take a premier edge rusher if he goes to the right spot. And it could take a premier edge rusher. Let's just say the Chargers, for example. If he's in the middle of that defense, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, I mean, those guys are going to get put on one-on-one situations all the time, and they're going to put tackles like they're on ice. So I think it's one of those things where Jordan Davis at 6'6", 341, runs a 4.7, 840. I mean, that's all great, but when you just watch the tape, he's just so dominant, and he can 2-gap, and there's a joke, around that he can actually 3-gap in a sense because he just eats up so much space. So I love his ability, and I know the Eagles would certainly be interested in a player like that, I would assume, just simply because, Fletcher Cox is on that 1-year deal. But the three teams that I think maybe Eagles fans need to kind of keep an eye on would be the Baltimore Ravens at 14, the Houston Texans potentially at 13, and the Washington Commanders at 11. So we'll see how that obviously plays out. But I think those three teams make a lot of sense for him.
Russ, when I sat down to do my mock draft, I had a tough time getting the quarterbacks in there. And I couldn't get one on there till Pittsburgh at 20. Ultimately, when push comes to shove, I don't think a lot of teams, Atlanta, I don't understand Atlanta's mentality. They seem to want a wide receiver, even though they don't have the vehicle to get that wide receiver the football, at least consistently. Carolina, Jody and I talked about, Matt Rule's got to win. He's got to win right now. You can't play a rookie quarterback. Seattle, I think they like Matt Corral, but they're not going to take him at number 9.
Right.
So maybe they are a trade down candidate. Pittsburgh, I think, is pretty solid. They're going to take a quarterback, and Malik Willis might fall all the way down to them. But where do you have the first quarterback coming off the board?
Yeah, they're back to back on my final mock draft at 19 and 20. I've got the Saints going Kenny Pickett, and then I've got the Steelers taking Malik Willis. I'm with you. I had a hard time kind of figuring out where those guys are going to go. And initially, like I mentioned, in my last final mock draft, rough draft, whatever you want to call it, that I ended up deleting, where Evan Neal went first. I had the Giants trading out of 7, which I believe they wanted to get out of that. I do believe they want out of that spot. And I had the Steelers moving up to take Malik Willis. But ultimately, I mean, we could see that happening. I think they could, get rid of some of that draft capital that they have for this year and next year. But yeah, realistically, I mean, we could see them fall a little bit. And I think 19, 20, maybe even somewhere between 15 and 20 just makes sense, where maybe there's some movement between the Saints and the Steelers to maybe make that happen. But yeah, I'm with you. And then I think it's just kind of the back end of the first round. I think is maybe where we see maybe a Desmond Ridder or a trade up for like a Matt Corral. Maybe it is Seattle. Maybe it is Atlanta. The Packers, I don't buy the Packers keeping 2 firsts. I really don't. They're going to be the team that has 5 picks in the second round when it's all said and done. And they're going to just double down on receivers and offensive linemen and do something there. But ultimately, yeah, I think maybe we see 4 quarterbacks, but it's more so because of the back end. And I mean, obviously we'll see what happens, but a little quick rumor that was passed my way last night. You love these rumors. I know fans will eat it up, but it was the conversation of Seattle. There's a lot of fire around them potentially moving up for Malik Willis, but I don't know how accurate that is. Obviously I'm not there, but I would be a little surprised with that, just watching John Schneider and that Seahawks regime down at the Senior Bowl, really paying close attention to offensive linemen.
Yeah, if they want a quarterback, they can take a quarterback at number 9. I don't know that they need to move up. They got a quarterback. They're going to have their choice of whatever quarterback they want at number 9. Eagles specific question for you, Russ. Let's say the Eagles do trade up. They've got to give up some of their day 2 capital to get to the spot, target a player, and that player is a defensive lineman. Won't even go so far as to tell you who it is, whether it's a defensive end or one of the 2 Georgia defensive tackles, but it's a defensive tackle. They still have needs, specifically outside, cornerback, wide receiver. If they've got to give up day 2 assets to get to the point, to get the guy they want to target in and around the top 10, which of those 2 positions shows better depth? If the Eagles aren't getting one in the first round, either corner or wide receiver, which one is the better bet that they'll be able to find somebody who can step in and play their rookie year, contribute at one of those 2 positions later in the draft because of the depth of the position?
Yeah, I would say it would be wide receiver. So, I mean, if you're an Eagles fan and they end up going defensive tackle and corner in the first round, I think that's a good problem to have, because I think wide receivers, a relatively deep draft. I mean, if you get into the second day of the draft, you got the option of maybe David Bell, Christian Watson, Sky Moore might be there from Western Michigan, who's been kind of shooting up draft boards. Calvin Austin out of Memphis. I mean, there's a lot of different types of receivers out there. George Pickens has been a popular name, but the rumor is that a lot of teams have him off the board because of a lot of character concerns, and the way he interviewed it was not great at all. So it wouldn't be surprising if he slipped a little bit. And if he does slip, does a team like Philly make a lot of sense for him somewhere on that second day? So yeah, I mean, if I'm the Eagles, I'm trying to, my sweet spot for them would be Jordan Davis and then Trent McDuffie. If they can somehow land those 2 players, I think it does wonders for their defense. But I don't know if McDuffie's going to be there, but I do have them getting Jordan Davis. So obviously we'll see how that plays out tomorrow, if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, I do think they have a significant interest in Jordan Davis. Probably have to move up a little bit, because I do think Baltimore is looming pretty heavy. They love that type of player. They did bring back Michael Pierce, but I don't think they can count on that long term. So I think they would have to make the targeted move up. But I'm going to talk about the splash move up, Russ, because you probably caught the end of it while you were in the green room there. But Jody and I were talking about Carolina moving down. If the Eagles were to move up that high, what player do you think would be targeted at 6 overall in that type of position?
It could certainly be that splash move for a receiver. I mean, is it Jamison Williams or Drake London? I think Drake London would be a great fit there to play opposite of Devontae Smith, that bigger body guy, 50-50 ball master and has that basketball background. So I think that they would be really interested in a player like him. But at the same time, could it be for maybe a potential cornerback? Like I mentioned, if Sauce Gardner starts to fall a little bit, would he make sense for that defense? I think he would. I think he'd be a great fit there. And if Derek Stingley's gone, I mean, could Sauce be the guy that they ultimately move up to try to get? I think that's very possible. But other than that, I mean, is it a potential edge rusher? I mean, does somebody like a Kayvon Thibodeau start to fall down the board, or an Aiden Hutchinson? One of those, if Trayvon Walker goes 1 and the other one goes 2, somebody's going to have to fall a little bit. So if they do, I mean, is it the move for the edge rusher? I think all 3 of those potential players or positions make a lot of sense for the team, and I think that would be maybe the splash move that they ultimately do. I would definitely be shocked if they moved up to get a quarterback, and I'm sure you could probably agree with me there. I mean, I don't see them doing that, but I mean, I would have to say one of those top guys at the top of the draft for Sauce or Kayvon.
All right, Russ. No, the Eagles, or I should say, I don't know anything, but I don't believe the Eagles are in this conversation. The year before last, Jonathan Taylor went top 3rd of the 2nd round, but a day 2 pick. And all he did this year in his 2nd year in the league was score 20 touchdowns, 18 on the ground, 2 more on via the air, and was absolutely in the conversation. If the Colts hadn't done an El Foldo at the end of the season, he would have gotten significant MVP consideration. Is there a Jonathan Taylor light back in this NFL draft? The guy who's going to get picked as one of the top backs, probably someday, somewhere in round 2 or day 2. Is there a guy who's even in the same zip code as Jonathan Taylor for your evaluation this year?
It would be close with maybe Kenneth Walker. I probably would still take Jonathan Taylor. I loved him when he was coming out, but I am a big fan of Kenneth Walker. I think he gets really overlooked in this draft. And I mean, I get some of the Breece Hall love, but at the same time, I mean, I wouldn't be drafting him in the 1st round if I was a team like the Bills. But if Kenneth Walker ends up falling to, let's say, pick 51 there in the 2nd round, I think he would make a lot of sense for a team like the Eagles if they were interested in it, but really any team on that 2nd round that's looking for a running back, I think he would make so much sense. He's so fluid with his lower body. He does just this crazy flexibility to kind of change direction, and I want to get up and like show you guys, but I can't because I'm one too old for that stuff. But it's one of those things where I love the burst with him. I love the ability to just kind of absorb contact. He truly is somebody that I think you can give the ball 6, 7, 8 times in a row and he won't get gassed. He'll get knocked for not catching passes out of the backfield. Only had 19 in his career. But at the same time, Jonathan Taylor didn't catch a lot of passes out of the backfield, and he's doing just fine. So I think Walker kind of falls into that similar range and falls into that similar conversation because of some of those things.
Russell Brown, follow him on Twitter. You see it right there at Russ NFL Draft. Cover1.net. Read his final mock draft and send the hate mail to where, Russ?
just send it at Russ NFL Draft. And yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Now, before you go, last one from me. Jody might have a last one, but I want to surprise. My surprise, I'll give you the example, is I don't know if a lot of people know, but Luke Bickle, the head coach at Cincinnati, is very close to Mike Vrabel. Mm-hmm. And I have Desmond Ridder matched up with Tennessee late in the 1st round. They don't need a quarterback right now, but Ryan Tannehill's not, I think we all know, there's kind of a ceiling there. So that's kind of my surprise in the 1st round. Any strange bits, maybe player most people don't have going in the 1st round? Got any surprise for us in the 1st round?
Well, that certainly would have been my answer as well. That's what I have also. With Fickle and Vrabel, those guys are very well connected back to obviously their days at Ohio State. So I think the Titans going quarterback makes a lot of sense. You know, when you look at it, Ryan Tannehill's not getting the job done in the big games. They're not winning playoff games. Desmond Ritter's a winner. He's won 44 career games, third most all time in NCAA history. And I think he's somebody that's mature. He's ready to go, and he can get that team over the hump if they really need him to. So I think that's the key there. And also, if you move Ryan Tannehill and you clear up, let's say, I want to say that the cap space clearing that they would do is about $20 million or so. So that's money that you're going to need for a player like AJ Brown to keep him. So I think there's a lot that kind of goes into favor there. Getting that rookie contract on the quarterback position for 4 or 5 years makes a lot of sense for a team like the Titans that are built to kind of win now. So I like that one as well. I'll kind of go with another surprise, Matt Corral, Atlanta Falcons. I know the Falcons have done a lot of research on him, and they've done a lot of research on just quarterbacks in general. And like I've said all show, I don't think the Packers are going to keep both picks. I think maybe there's a trade where the Falcons, who have 2 second-rounders and a third-rounder, they could give up a second and a third to move up to pick 28. And the pick would be, you know, the Packers moving out of the first round, and the Falcons would ultimately take Matt Corral, the quarterback out of Ole Miss. So I think that would be some surprising stuff at the back end of the first round that might happen. And then just lastly, Karlaftis falls out of the first. Maybe we see like a Boye Mafe or an Arnold Ebiketie for like a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, who could certainly be looking to upgrade edge rusher. Frank Clark's been kind of on the rumor mill hot seat for that team all off season. And obviously Mike Dana's only playing opposite of him. So I think they want to upgrade there. So ultimately, I think we could see some type of edge rusher there for the Chiefs.
By the way, both you guys are wrong. There's no way Tennessee's going quarterback. They're gonna run Tannehill out there again this year. They had the best record in the AFC last year. They're not taking a step back to take 2 steps forward down the road. So I disagree with you two guys there. We'll find out tomorrow night. That's the best part of it. All right. Everybody always loves this question. If they're a draft content creator like yourself, give me your day 3 guy. You've checked out other people's mock drafts. They either have them undrafted or you've got them in round 4 as compared to other people who have them in round 7. Who's your guy day 3 that's going to be starting in the National Football League in 2022, and you think everybody else has underrated and you've got him pegged exactly where he should be?
Yeah, I mean, this one's a layup for me. That's Luke Godeke out of Central Michigan, the offensive tackle. I love his skill set. He is certainly somebody that could easily go on the second day of the draft. Maybe he goes somewhere in that 3rd round range, but I just love his skill set. He gets often compared with his teammate Bernard Raymond out of Central Michigan, but I prefer Godeke over Raymond. I mean, he is just some of his tape is just kind of teach tape for offensive tackle technique. I mean, he's always so square. Everything is under control. He's consistent with his pad level, his hand placement. And I mean, his feet will have to get a little bit faster, but he looks like a starting right tackle at the next level. And I love his skill set. I would take him over Bernard Raymond. And I think when it's all said and done, I think Godeke will be the better of the 2 offensive tackles out of Central Michigan. And then just another offensive lineman that will certainly go on the 3rd day of the draft is Cordell Volson out of North Dakota State. This kid was a walking double-double back in high school. I mean, he had 35 career double-doubles, which was the most all time. He had 33 blocks in a season. He is a beast. In 2019, he had over 100 knockdowns for the Bison's offense. So he's somebody that when you watch Trey Lance, you watch Dylan Ray Dunes, you watch Christian Watson over the years, he consistently caught my eye. Right tackle, 67, looks like a guard. Probably going to be just because of his footwork, but he's aggressive. He's mean. He can down block. He can reach. He can do just about anything you need him to do. But I think he could be somebody that if you need offensive line help on the 3rd day of the draft, you could probably plug and play him at right guard if you really needed to.
If I knew Central Michigan's offensive linemen were as good as you're saying,
yeah, how about Central Michigan?
I would have taken them against Washington State in their bowl game this year. Could have made some money, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there you go.
Russ, good stuff. You kind of mentioned it in passing yesterday. We're less than 2 weeks away from the Run for the Roses. I know, like you, like me, you're a horse racing fan. Who are you leaning toward in the Kentucky Derby?
I mean, obviously it'll be tough to pass Epicenter. I mean, he's so good. He's won so many different races and so many key races. I mean, I'm obviously really intrigued with Cyberknife and how well he ran at the Arkansas Derbies, won back-to-back races now. So I think it would probably be some type of combination there. And if I had to maybe throw, I don't know if he'd be a potential long shot, but maybe, just maybe, Tiz the Bomb would maybe be somebody that maybe hits the board. Maybe he runs second or third. The only thing that worries me is when he ran on dirt back in February, he placed 7th, and then he ran synthetic and he won both those races. So I know that's going to make a little bit of a difference, but we'll see. It's really my favorite 2 weeks of the year here. We got the draft, we got the Derby to follow. It's a bunch of horse racing. We got Mountaineer back running during the nightcap during the week, so I got something to bet.
You got to get out of Mountaineer. You got to do it. You can't be betting those horses at Mountaineer. They're just, the quality of the Kentucky Derby as compared to Mountaineer is night and day. But
I got to build a bankroll.
I like your cyberknife, Brad Cox. I know he had to wait 10 months for it, but he is your defending Kentucky Derby winning trainer. And he told me months ago that Cyberknife was his best horse. So I do like that selection. Best of luck on that. Enjoy the draft these next couple of days. Russ, thanks for coming on. We'll get you on after the draft is over and done with, and we'll get a review out of you. Thanks, bud.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Russ Brown here with us on Birds 365. Yeah, it's funny because I had him on as a guest, and I tweeted it out, and he hit me with a DM on Twitter. Didn't know he was as big a horse racing fan as he was. He wanted to pick my brain about horse racing because he listens to my show and he knows how much horse racing I talk as well. We don't do that here on Birds 365. But if you want, you got my Twitter. They can send me any horse racing questions you want on Twitter, which is better.
You're the expert there. I got to defer to your knowledge.
Better than the hate tweets we get from time to time here on Birds 365. Horse racing queries always accepted and look forward to. All right, we'll come back. We got that much more to do. Mike Tanier from Football Outsider is going to join us in the next upcoming hour. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac and Mac Bird 365 guys.
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
got Mag and Matt, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365 as the countdown to the draft is on. It's no longer days, it's hours before the Jacksonville Jaguars get on the clock. And I know from time to time you take a little bit of a pot shot at the Jaguars. Much deserved, as a matter.
What an organization.
The dysfunctional organization it is, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And of course, there was an article out there overnight that said Shad Khan disagrees with Trent Baalke as though he's leaning toward as the number one draft pick as of right now.
Yeah.
They had said earlier in the week they'd cut their finalists down to 4. You only got a couple of days. You should have it less than 4 by this point.
Yeah,
boys.
you should know where you're going to go. Well, I hope they do, but look, it doesn't surprise me. And it started when I was doing my mock draft. Everybody thinks it's down to Evan Neal or Trayvon Walker. I think it's down to Ike Ekwonu or Trayvon Walker. And I think Baalke would want Walker. I think Doug Peterson, just from knowing him, would want the offensive tackle, which would be Ekwonu or Neal. It could be Neal, but and I'd lean towards the offensive tackle because I said if they're going to give any goodwill or any deference to Doug, it's going to happen now. And they did mention surprise, so I'm probably thinking too much into it. It's probably going to be Walker, but yeah, they're a disaster, Jody. And I'm rooting for him because I like Doug so much. And I think Doug's a good coach, and I think he'll do a good job from a football standpoint. But, I mean, the owner doesn't know what he's doing. The director of strategy is more concerned what's going on tonight, wherever AEW is with their TV show. I mean, literally, the draft is tomorrow. Tony's more worried about AEW wrestling. I mean, if I'm a Jacksonville fan, I'm upset that he's the director of strategy. He should probably just walk away. He's going to get mad at me, but he should. And Trent Baalke doesn't have the best reputation in this league. I'll leave it at that.
Right. And sorry to interrupt you, John. That scares me more than anything else. Because you remember back to when they were going through the new hiring of a coach process, a couple of would-be candidates said, yeah, we don't want to come work for Trent Baalke. So there were rumors that they were going to bring in someone else to be a parallel executive with Baalke just to be able to get their guy. They ended up on Doug Peterson, who we've seen before. Doug, as long as he's got the gig, isn't going to fight for power right off the bat. With a Super Bowl, then he might do a little bit of a power grab, and it could get him actually fired just a couple of years after winning a Super Bowl. But Doug wasn't going to come in and try and dictate who he wanted to work with as far as an executive goes. They did all that talking, and they did absolutely nothing. Nothing changed other than Doug Peterson was handed the head coaching job. It's the same exact guys who were in position watching the franchise falter the last several years. If you're a Jags fan, I don't know where you're hanging your hat of optimism.
No, I mean, it was Chad who hired Urban Meyer. I mean, that is the worst head coaching hire in at least, I don't know. Give me one worse, Jody. It's been a long time. I mean, that was an abject disaster from minute one. And I don't know who didn't see it coming other than Shad Khan. So,
well,
look, they got it right. They got it right. They got it right with Doug, I think. But even that, they didn't want to hire Doug. Very similar to the Eagles back in the day. No matter what the Eagles say, they didn't want to hire Doug. They wanted to hire Byron Leftwich, and that probably would have worked out fine as well. But we'll never know. Just a bad organization. So, and they have the number one pick. And look, they don't want the number one pick. They don't want it because they had it last year, and there is no Trevor Lawrence this year. They'd love to trade out, but nobody's going to trade up for that pick. And so they got to make the best of it. And what do you do? To me, I'm just going to protect Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's simple to me, and I think it's simple to Doug, and that's why you should probably bet on Trayvon Walker.
All right, we're getting down to, as we say, matter of hours before the draft, and John and I have thrown this out here. I don't know how many times over the last week or so. The misinformation that is the time leading up to the draft, that certain stories are put out there because the team has an agenda. They want some teams to double check and or get scared off when there's a player that they specifically want and isn't within their reach, so they need to see the player drop or the price of trading up to get into a position to draft that player come down a little bit. What has been your favorite misinformation story? As far as you could tell, maybe you even checked into it and went to sources that you liked with a specific team or around a specific player, an agent who represented somebody. Was there a favorite John McMullen misinformation lead up to the draft story this year?
I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's Neil yesterday. It's amazing to me, and this is more from people in my industry I'm criticizing than other people, because I kind of explained it with Russ. Like, I don't understand why people bite on these stories. Just from the pure logic standpoint, as I explained there, we don't have the information. We don't have the information. Reporters, we don't get the medical information. So, like, what is the spin? Who you're trying to fool? Because the actual NFL teams have the information. They have the information. So for me, whenever I get those stories, I'm like, I just brush them aside. They don't mean anything to me because you're trying to fool reporters, which is easy, evidently. They have the stinking information. You can't say to a team, oh, we failed Evan Neal. They have the combine medicals. They know he wasn't invited back for the medical recheck. And by the way, if you're going to take Evan Neal at number 1 or number 4 or 5 or 6, you've done all that research left and right as an organization. You have that information, so you're not going to be fooled by that. And reporters are fooled by it every single year. And it always amazes me. The stuff that I find more relevant is, and I bring up Charles Cross, that to me is teams. That to me is teams ranking. Oh, we love Cross. We love Cross. That to me is a team. And I'm talking specifically, I'm looking at the Giants and I'm looking at the Panthers. We love Cross. We love Cross. No, they love Neal. And they're hoping the other one takes Cross and buys it and they get Neal. Not that they wouldn't, Cross is a very good player as well. And I think ultimately he'll be a top 10 pick. They're all going to go really, really quickly. But those are the ones that I think are really interesting wranglings of teams. They have the medical information. You don't have the medical information. Stop buying that nonsense. That is my PSA for reporters around the country. They have the medical information. We're the ones who don't have it.
That one was pretty illogical. I'm with you, John. When I read it, I said, really? Didn't buy it, then I don't buy it. And the way you just laid it out certainly explains it. No, I'll give you my favorite misinformation story. And I saw it, I think it was 2 days ago. I'm a Matt Corral fan. I actually think he's the second best quarterback in this draft. I think I don't think there's a lot of difference between Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral, as a matter of fact. I would rate Corral ahead of Malik Willis. I would rate him ahead of Desmond Ridder. I would rate him ahead of Sam Howell for sure. So I have been out there singing the praises of Matt Corral basically all season long. So I want to see him do well just so I can look like I know what I'm talking about. There was a story out there this week that some people questioned Matt Corral's character, which is the exact opposite of everything I heard during the year, that he was a take charge guy, leader in the clubhouse, kind of like our guy Jalen Hurts here in Philadelphia. Guys gravitate to him. I think he's both an athlete and a quarterback. He's got that little gunslinger to him, and he slings the ball a little bit, which everyone wants the perfect form and cock it and throw it from the shoulder. except Patrick Mahomes doesn't play football that way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing Matt Corral to Patrick Mahomes. Nobody compares.
You'll get it. Jody McDonald compared Matt Corral to Patrick Mahomes. You'll
just
get it.
in that they have that quick sling release. That's the only comparison between the two. Overall game, I'm not going there. But I did see a story this week about some people questioning Matt Corral and his character and his attitude because he got into a fight with Wayne Gretzky's kid in high school. Really? You're backing it up to high school? That he got in a tussle with Wayne Gretzky's kid? Oh, that makes him an undisciplined individual. You can't have him running your football team. Really? That's how far you had to go back to high school? The Gretzky's kid? The question Matt Corral's character? Come on.
I'm going to our second draft day reference of the week, the movie, where I think Bo Callahan fell because nobody went to his birthday party.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to try, I mean, even Kayvon Thibodeau, I constantly hear people say, "Oh, there's character concerns. There's character concerns." I'm looking around. I'm like, where are these? What? I've seen no evidence that he's cocky. Sometimes that's good. I guess it could rub some people the wrong way, and that's always an individual situation. But I would argue that, people that talented who are cocky, that's part of the reason they're as good as they are, because they believe in themselves, because they've had so much success. And in other words, a lot of times I find that as a positive, not a negative, especially when you're playing a sport like football, where you can't be a shrinking violet in football. You got to be out there. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe you're the guy. That to me is only a positive. So I don't know. People look at things different ways. I mean, and if you rub somebody the wrong way, I guess it could hurt you.
I saw him yesterday on the NFL Network. They brought him in for an interview. They showed the tape of when he did say, the only thing I don't understand is how am I not the number one pick in the draft? And yeah, he came off as cocky, but I'm with you. Give me cocky over questionable every day of the week. A guy
give me cocky over. Give me cocky over Ben Simmons, and I'm afraid to shoot the bet. I mean, I want Michael Jordan. That's the cockiest guy in the history of the world. Which I'm exaggerating, but Larry Bird. I mean, there was that, I think it was ESPN that did the famous trash talking story. Larry Bird's the best trash talker of all time. And he just would talk everything to people's faces and then back it up. That's the guy I want. That's the guy I always want.
And in J-Max last mock, Kayvon Thibodeau dropping down past the top 5 into, where do you have him go, 7 or 8 or
7?
New
York Giants.
If the Eagles could get to number 6 with the Carolina Panthers, they could add that very cocky, very talented, best athlete, edge pass rusher in this upcoming draft. Could be something that we're talking about come Friday here on Birds 365. All right, one more note before we take a timeout here, and then Mike Tanier from Football Outsiders is going to join us. See what Jerry had to say yesterday?
What did he say? No.
Jeff Lurie, when we last heard from Jeff, talked about how the picks that he had involvement with for the Philadelphia Eagles, that this pick, that pick, the other pick, all seemed to be picks that worked out quite well for the Philadelphia Eagles.
They certainly did.
And those that didn't work out quite as well, Jeff said, no, I'm going to let you guys decide on that one. A selective memory for the owner of the Eagles. Well, the Dallas Cowboy owner had basically the same thing. But he was a little bit more upfront about it. He wasn't trying to fool anybody by saying, yeah, look at him for the successes. He came right out and pointed a finger at his son and said, yeah, it's a collaborative thing and who makes the pick and whatever. Just let me say this. Taco Charlton, that was my son's pick. Yeah, last year's pick, our rookie of the year, defensive player, that was mine.
Yeah.
And he got a big laugh out of it. And Stephen Jones played tremendously, just looked into the camera and said, wow, I don't find that funny. Because they put Taco on his account and Jerry took credit for the rookie of the year defensive player.
Well, we all rolled our eyes when Jeffrey went down that route. I think it was Lane Johnson, Russell Wilson, and Jordan Mailata. Everybody else, no, I didn't have anything to do with it. Those guys.
I let my employees do their jobs on those, but the three that we're talking about in question, I was heavily involved with those. At least when Jerry does it, he's not trying to shine anybody on. He's actually going for a laugh. Michael Parsons, that one's me. Taco Charlton, that was Steven's pick. It was actually pretty funny if you get to see the video. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald with the Mac guys here on Birds 365. Mike Tanier, who's been on with us before, always does a great job when he joins us. We're talking draft with him next here on Birds 365.
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, fake them out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
You got Mac guys here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Despite the fact that he might be the only guest we've ever had on who has a better beard than me, we still invited him back for another appearance because he brings knowledge every time he does. Come on with us, Mike Tanier from FootballOutsiders.com. Hops aboard. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing well. These gray beards represent decades of Eagles first-round draft busts. That's what's right.
Yes. But that's because Jeffrey's not involved that often, Mike. Just one first-round pick, and that was Lane Johnson. Then Russell Wilson, 3rd rounder. Jordan Mailata, 7th rounder, but he doesn't get involved. That brings me, since I know you're a big fan of silly season, what's your favorite story during the silly season of this ridiculous hype lead up to the NFL draft?
I guess it's the one that's breaking in the last couple of days that Trayvon Walker went from the late 1st round sleeper to a guy maybe who should go to the top 10 to minus 225 odds to be the 1st overall pick. As this guy who, when I was watching Georgia Bulldogs games on Saturdays, and then when I was watching Georgia Bulldogs film leading up to like the Senior Bowl, he's like the 5th best guy on the Georgia defense. Is now the #1 player in the NFL draft.
It's about projection, Mike. Come on.
He's got such long arms, and I can't get around this. And I see people kind of, look at his traits. Look at his traits. And again, we're old Philadelphia guys. We remember Mike McMullen. I don't want to hear about traits at the very, very top of the 1st round. Talk to me about that at the top of the 2nd round or the bottom of the 1st round.
Fair enough. And I do want to ask, I got to question you a little bit here. Did you really do a show with Michael Kay? Why would you do it? Why? Kay's a friend of the show too, so we can poke fun at him since we're all poking fun at each other. How'd that go yesterday?
It was phenomenal. It was great having Michael on. And Mike's going to be there. I guess you guys are going to be there too in the Eagles auditorium watching all the action tomorrow night. So I'm jealous you guys all get to hang out. I'll be here in the home office doing pick-by-pick stuff, but it went phenomenal.
There's nothing to be jealous about unless they open the cafeteria, which I don't have confirmation that's going to happen yet, Mike. But I'll be there. Jody will be on the air, CBS national radio. But so I'll get to see Mike Kay. That's always exciting for me. But more exciting for the listeners is probably the top of the draft. And you mentioned Trayvon Walker. I because you cover the league from a national perspective. I like Doug Peterson. I think he's a really good coach. But man, he's going to a bad organization. What do they think about the Jacksonville Jaguars? Have you ever seen anything like it?
It's bizarre. And the way the stories are coming out is that Doug would like one of the linemen, Ekamakwanu or Keanu O'Neal. It's like, can't miss lineman protect Trevor Lawrence. And they were like, no, we franchised Cam Robinson, who's an okay left tackle, but we franchised him. We spent money on him, so now we have to do something else. And that Shad Khan and maybe Tony Khan and the ownership family has their guy, but Trent Baalke is the one to make the decision, as the general manager should, but the general manager should make the decision with the input of people like the coach or the guy who has the checks. Baalke don't do that. That's not how Baalke rolls. Him and Harbaugh had the battles, et cetera, et cetera. And Doug Peterson was hired specifically to sort of be the adult in the room after Urban Meyer. Like his #1 thing coming in is he's going to restore some calm and peace to like the chaos where Meyer was kicking guys, and screaming at them, et cetera. If he's there to do that, let him make those kind of decisions. Hey, the smart thing to do at #1 is either get one of these tackles or get one of the edges that we know can get a dozen sacks and not swing for the fences. Jaguars just are not wired to think that way. They're going to try and swing for the fences.
Mike, I want to touch on a couple other teams, not the Jaguars, who'll be drafting in front of the Eagles. As of right now, Eagles sit at number 15, could trade up. Let's take a divisional peek. Good news is the Eagles made the playoffs last year. Bad news is both the Giants and the Commanders now draft ahead of the Eagles. Giants with 2 first-round picks at 5 and 7. The Commanders at 11, couple slots ahead of the Eagles. Giants, new general manager, new coach in place. Yes. Washington trying to stay in the course. Mm-hmm. What kind of position are those teams in to improve themselves here? Do you have confidence?
Giants need everything, pretty much everything in the world. They may trade down. They may trade out into 2022 because their cap situation is so bad that 2 first-round salaries could actually hurt them at this point. So, I mean, they're going to take an offensive lineman and an edge rusher probably, or an offensive lineman and a Sauce Gardner if they stay where they are, or a Derek Stingley. Okay. If that new brain trust has their druthers, they're going to kind of push and say, we'll have more money to spend and more of a chance of getting a quarterback next year. They're going to look for opportunities. Could be a trade-up opportunity even for the Eagles potentially, if that's it. Could also be the Saints doing that. Washington, I don't know. I don't know. They were one of the most injured teams in the league on offense last year, so we don't know what they believe they have. Looking at them, it looks like they might need a safety. If Kyle Hamilton actually slips because people think, oh, he's the best player in college football, but, who needs a safety? That could be a place where the Washington Commanders could pick up a value. They could be looking for a receiver ahead of the Eagles, and that would be a problem since the Eagles are in the receiver market. But they've got, obviously, Terry McLaurin, but they're getting Curtis Samuel back, but they might say we need somebody else there. So Giants might trade out, might just work on the line. Commanders, it's very hard to say. My guess is that they're going to go on defense, but they could try to upgrade that offense as well.
Well, you mentioned the Eagles trading up, and I think there's two ways that could happen. The targeted trade up, which they've done in the past, most recently last year with Devontae Smith. Andre Dillard was that, Fletcher Cox back in the day. Small move up, which I think is most likely. But you mentioned the splash, the Giants, Carolina, a lot of teams looking to get out probably of that top 10. If the Eagles weren't going to make that splash move, which I don't agree with, they have too many needs, but what player do you think they would target if they're going to try to go up that high?
One could be Williams, wide receiver from Alabama. I don't like that move because you're not getting immediate help because of his ACL injury. But around the league, he's coveted as somebody who can be a long-term answer. And it'll be an Alabama, class reunion, whatever. He's a very, very good player. If either of the cornerbacks, Stingley or Sauce, drop, which is very unlikely that they're sitting on the board around 9 or 10, and that team sitting there and say, well, screw it, we're just going to get this guy. That could be a guy that you're getting up to get. Another guy I'm just looking at, and talking to Kay yesterday, Jordan Davis, Georgia defensive tackle, 320-pound monster, has Vita Vea potential, is a guy that could start dropping towards the Eagles. And you got Fletcher Cox, Jevin Harger. You got Fletcher Cox from last year of a deal, renegotiated deal. You have needs all along that defensive front. This is a guy who comes in, eradicates all your problems on run defense, and will upgrade your pass rush a little bit because he's going to give you more, what Fletcher gave you more of 4 or 5 years ago on the inside. Could be a dark horse guy who he's getting down to that level, like where the Texans are picking or something like that, and the Eagles see something that they like there, and they go up and make that move.
Mike, you guys at Football Outsiders lean on analytics. I appreciate you because you're not a slave to analytics like some people are, but you incorporate it in your writing and the site's writing and evaluations and the like. I think this is one of the toughest times of the year because if you're crunching numbers from college football, how do they compare to projecting what a guy can get done at an NFL level? It's not apples to apples. It's kind of apples to oranges. Absolutely. More or less analytical use when you're trying to project a guy graduating from college football to the NFL for you.
So tricky. There are some things that you can look at and say, yeah, this will project. A quarterback who gets sacked a lot in college, that's the biggest sign that they're not NFL ready. So you can look at the college sack rates and say, Malik Willis, for example, led the NCAA in college sack rate against a mostly softer schedule. I mean, he was a weaker team, softer schedule, whatever. That's one of your indicators. If you need any others, yeah, if you draft him, he's a projection. Something like defensive end, edge rusher, sack specialist, the traits are actually a better indicator than the sack totals. And that goes back to Trayvon Walker. Those traits really are great. The analytics say he could be a very, very good pass rusher because 3-cone drills and 10-yard short shuttles and arm lengths and things like that are better than saying, oh, he had 12 sacks, so he had 13 sacks. So that becomes very tricky. The problem with Walker is the analytics love him, and they love Thibodeau, and they love Hutchinson, and they love one or two other guys. So if it's all equal, if it's all within 1 percentage point each other, take the guy who had a dozen sacks, not the guy who only had 6 sacks, and that makes the most sense. So a lot of times along the way, you have to throw out 90% of what you're looking at because these guys are running RPOs and read options and screen passes over and over again in college. It inflates their stats. They're playing against weaker opponents and all those things. You have to grind all of it out and take a couple of indicators and say, this is what we can hang our hats on.
And how much does the tape matter, especially when you go to a place like Georgia, which, most times, Mike, they're going to have 7 defenders maybe in the top 60 or 70 players in this draft.
Yeah.
Most times you're not getting 7 players drafted in a particular year. This is rare. And, somebody brought up, one GM brought up to me that the transfer portal is a big deal in college now for this reason. And Georgia already lost Jermaine Johnson.
Yes.
Jermaine Johnson was at Georgia before he went to Florida State.
Right.
So they have Trayvon Walker. They have Jordan Davis. They have Devontae Wyatt. They have another kid. Jalen Carter's going to go probably top 5 next year. They got to play those guys or they're going to transfer and go somewhere else.
Right.
So you have this rotational system.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a guy like Walker who's asked to set the edge.
Right.
He's not really told to go after the quarterback.
Right.
So how much does that factor into that projection, and how difficult is it to marry the analytics with that kind of stuff when you're talking about the film?
It's tricky, and that's when people started looking at Walker more carefully and looking at his role and things like that and saying, oh, wow, this is a guy that maybe in November we thought of as, he's a third-round pick or something like that. And we started moving him up the board, and you recognize, oh, yeah, he's not on the field as much because they're rotating in five-star up underclassmen, and they're giving opportunities to these other guys, and they're blitzing Dean, et cetera, et cetera. So on that end, you look at the scouting, and that's important. And again, you also realize he's facing Alabama offensive lineman. He's facing, top of the line SEC opponents. And then I'll go back to the stats. And it's like, okay, well, let's look at the Georgia line and see who had a high pressure rate, not just a sack total, because sometimes that's just the quarterback ran into you. Who had a high pressure rate? And then you look at Walker, and his pressure rate was like at 9%. And Jordan Davis's was at 12 or 13%. And Devontae Wyatt's was at 15, 16%. And Carter, the young man, he's playing on limited stats. It's 23%. And like, if you're the fourth best guy on your line, I get scheme, I get usage, I get things like that. But if you're, again, the jump from fourth best on your line to best player in the draft, it's just, there's nothing on tape. There's nothing on the stats that are going to justify things like that. It does give you that ammunition to say, hey, if Bill Belichick took Trayvon Walker, it would scare the hell out of me. And Belichick would have this exact plan. He's going to do this. And, he'd wind up with 6 sacks, but the guy behind him would get 16 sacks. And it would all be part of the plan. But for right now, for the Jaguars, you have to look and say, I don't know what scheme plan they have for this guy. And that's where the projection comes from.
Mike, want to ask you about valuation in the National Football League, that there are some positions that just aren't valued the same way they used to be. If you look at defense, certainly it's defensive line 1, cornerbacks 2, linebackers 3, safeties 4. Maybe you think safeties 3, linebackers 4. And when I say linebackers, I'm not talking edge 3-4 guys who get to the quarterback. I'm talking about guys who are playing the linebacker position. Where has the needle swung too far? That in your estimation, the league is overreacted and their devaluating of a position has actually hurt some teams, and those that haven't moved the needle that far are actually in better shape and will react that way in this upcoming draft?
It might be defensive interior tackle, and it might be safety. And we talked about Jordan Davis, and the talk about him is like, well, he's kind of only a run defender. Well, first of all, he still needs to defend the run. And secondly, I don't think he's only a run defender. I don't think people are watching the film a little more closely there. But safety is the one I go back to, where it's like, we're devaluing safeties. We're devaluing safeties. And then they sit there in the room. How are we going to stop Aaron Rodgers, and how are we going to stop Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? It's like, well, maybe if you invested more talent in deep safety, you would have a guy who would be able to erase your Tyreek Hills, not by covering him one-on-one, by covering him down the field and chasing those plays down. And in this draft, it's not just Kyle Hamilton. It's Jaquan Bursker. It's Jalen Petrie. Most of these guys now in college are not just standing back in cover 2. That's not what they're doing now. They really are covering slot receivers. They are blitzing. They're these Swiss Army knife, queen on the chessboard type defenders. And the NFL is still looking at them and it's like, we'll see. We'll grab who we get in the second round. Like the guy who can, I think of Kyle Hamilton. This is the guy that's going to stop George Kittle. This is the guy who's going to stop Travis Kelce. This is the guy who's going to stop Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel's a bigger receiver in the slot, and you can get Hamilton in there, and you can do that. Or you can say, we need a guy deep, and he's going to help us stop Tyreek Hill. That's a lot of roles. That's important roles in today's NFL, and the teams at the top of the draft board are saying, maybe we'll get the 4th best edge rusher instead. I don't think that's a very good strategy.
Not only that, Mike, and I'm going to give Ben Solak credit for this. I think he brought it up. From the Ringer, he brought it up to me, and I said, that is true. And what he said was, teams are actually valuing safeties, but they're valuing veteran safeties. They're paying guys like Marcus Williams, who to me is but he's not a great player.
Right.
And they're paying him big money, and they're not valuing the position in the draft, which is weird, because you look at the wide receiver boom in the market there, And now they're saying, well, these guys are getting pushed up the board because we want cost-effective guys because we don't want to pay a wide receiver $20 million. Why do you want to pay an average safety $13 million or above average safety, and you got Kyle Hamilton sitting there? It doesn't make any sense. From the normal way the NFL does business, that position is a 180 from the way they normally do business. It's so strange to me.
It's strange. You can say, well, safety is a little bit of a veteran position because they've got to do more read and react and diagnosis back there. A lot of these young guys, by their second year, they're going to be pretty darn good at that. And they'll make up for it by being a step faster from those veterans. And the other thing you'll see is like veteran of the year. So we just brought in a guy for a 1 year, 2 year contract. Then we'll get the next guy. Teams do a lot of that. It's expensive. You don't get continuity at the position. And are they getting results? I don't know. Every year there's a new passing record. So I don't know if these teams are getting a lot of results from the safety. One team that doesn't do that, by the way, is the Bills. They got Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde back there. They've kept continuity back there. And they've got probably the best safety tandem in the league. They're not just grabbing random veterans. They drafted Poyer. I think they got Hyde from the Packers. But they brought these guys in and they got stability there.
I might need you to do some wide receiver ranking for me. And I'm going to ask you to put aside what type of wide receiver a guy is, because we hear a lot about, he's a big catch radius, taller guy. He complements the shorter wide receiver you have, except for the fact that Nick Sirianni's on record saying, I want all my wide receivers to be able to play all the positions.
Right.
X, Y, slot. Doesn't matter. I want them all to be able to play all. So we shouldn't look at them in that vein. And if that's the case, rank the top wide receivers in order in this draft. Don't know when the Eagles are going to pick. Are they trading up? Are they trading back? But when they're on the board, if they had the chance to pick any of the wide receivers, how would you rate them?
Number 1, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State. I love his ability to both get deep and get open in his first couple steps off the line. A little bit of a work in progress as a route runner, but has the agility to be elite at that. Number 2, Jamison Williams, Alabama, probably would be number 1 if we weren't talking about an ACL tear and not having this guy probably in training camp and in the first part of the year. Great all-around receiver, can do all the things. Number 3, I was back and forth about Treylon Burks because of his slow 40 times. But you go back to the tape, I talked to some people, and it's like they didn't expect this guy to run a 4.4. He's very big. I think he's typecast as Deebo Samuel in the slot. If you watch him on tape going up the sidelines, getting deep passes, a poorly thrown deep pass, for example, that might have been underthrown. I'm not sure if an Eagles quarterback underthrows deep passes once in a while. He can go back and get him. He can body up the corner on that side, and then he can run the little slant over the middle. So I like him. Drake London's another of the bigger type. I don't want to get into the types, but Drake London is like that. I don't know what he runs. I'm not too worried about it. He's a smooth route runner. I think there's not much downside in this guy. He's going to be your big target, and he can do some deep stuff. Number 5, I'm going with Olave of Ohio State. I think he's a pure speed guy. I worry because I think he was the 3rd best receiver on Ohio State. They had that underclassman whose name eludes me right now, and you had Wilson. But he is a very smooth route runner, and he's got that depth. Then I'm going with Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. Again, I think he's typecast as a slot. He's a little bit undersized. I think he fits what the Eagles like. They like smaller, skinnier, Devontae Smith type guys who can do a lot of things. He's got the speed. And then there's a tier after that, and we could go on. I could go on and on and on, but I think we'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, Mike, you've heard the news, the shocking news that Jalen Reagor's on the market if you're interested. Yeah. It is kind of funny, but we're talking about there's a very good chance for the 3rd consecutive year.
Yeah.
The Eagles are going to take a wide receiver at some point in the first round.
Yeah.
I see both sides of the fence. You got to admit a mistake. The old saying is, you got to admit it before you can fix it.
Right.
However, Nick Sirianni was brought in here, and one of the knocks on Doug Peterson when he left was developing players. And I looked at last year and I said, well, Jalen Reagor got worse, if anything. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who has now moved to tight end, got worse. When does player development come into this? I think too many people say you draft a player and you get a good player or a bad player. Right. You got to develop these guys. And have the Eagles failed when it comes to – because we don't know the butterfly effect. If you don't have to take a wide receiver, you can have another player at another position of need. How much has player development hurt this organization?
I think at wide receiver in the last couple of years, it really hurt because I think Arcega-Whiteside is a failure of development. And I think Rieger is a failure of development. I did not like him as a first-round pick, frankly. I think he was a one-dimensional guy that the Eagles and some other teams got caught up in as a first-round guy. I wouldn't hold that against the Sirianni organization just yet because I think they got, especially in J-Jaw, they got sort of damaged goods coming in that they're trying to manage along the way. So how much of it was the outgoing coaching staff? I was not impressed by some of the later receiver coaches, et cetera, that Doug Peterson had in there. How much of it was the quarterback controversy in the past and the idea that past quarterbacks weren't necessarily helping some of these young receivers along by being accurate and playing within the offense and things? I think that had a little bit to do with it too. So right now with the wide receivers of the last 2 years, I think Rieger was a miss. I think Slim Reaper's a hit. I think that he's – I didn't see any –
I give Nick Saban credit for that, though. I mean, he showed up and he was ready. I remember Devontae Smith on the first day of practice, and I said, "Oh, this is different."
Yeah, that's fair. Well, then Jameson Williams might show up ready too, by the same logic. Then I think it's a need, and I think for the Eagles to say, "Gosh, we don't develop receivers very well. We better not do this." If they didn't do that by grabbing a guy off of the free agent market, then it's a need, and you fill it. And if that's your worry, then don't take Sky Moore, from Western Michigan. I don't know if he's coming in ready. Yeah. Take one of these because these guys are coming in from Ohio State and Alabama. They should be pretty ready. Go out and grab one of them.
All right, let me double down on the Ohio State. The guy you couldn't think of was Jackson Smith Nigba, who, oh, by the way, had more receiving yards than either Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave this past year. And he's going back. And, oh, by the way, Ohio State has another kid by the name of Harrison. Might recognize the name. Son thereof, Marvin. So they're going to have a big-time passing game.
Pretty good quarterback, too.
That's exactly where I'm going. CJ Stroud looks like he's going to be ready to put up boxcar numbers next year. I like the kid's arm. I like the kid's makeup. You got two quarterbacks this year. No quarterbacks are going in the top 5, maybe none in the top 10. Right. You're going to have two guys right at the top of the draft next year in the Alabama quarterback and the Ohio State quarterback. Which one do you like? Is there one better than the other? If the Eagles need to be in that quarterback market, they've got 2 first-round draft picks now next year because they did their trade down with the Saints. How good is next year's quarterback class going to be at the top?
Right off the top, those guys look like a number 1 and a number 2, a worthy number 1 and a worthy number 2. I've not ranked them in order. I've not broken them down in any way. It's just, I'm watching them when I'm scouting Jameson Williams and John Mechie and Olave and Wilson. And it's like, yeah, they're coming. You got to watch their progress through next year. I don't see with that receiving core in those programs, I don't see a thing where you know what? They fell off. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't have all the names in front of me. There's depth behind them. So if the Eagles strategy, and I think a lot of us think the Eagles strategy is, okay, last year was the Jalen Hurts audition, and he did well enough that this year's the callback. So you get the callback audition. We're trying to figure out who's going to play Batman or Superman. So you get the callback because we have a couple of guys. They're ready. They have ammunition next year to get that other guy. The question will be, first of all, how well will the Eagles do? They're not going to probably be a bottom 5 team. I don't think the Saints are going to be a bottom 5 team, so they're going to have to package things and move up. Who else is going to be in that conversation? Who else is going to have extra capital next year? The Dolphins, I think, put themselves in that position already because they're doing the similar thing with Tua. One thing I think the Giants want to do, what they would love to do, is take the top 10, the 10th pick, and give us the 20th pick, and then give us your next year one, because we could finish in the top 5 and we could move up, and we're going to be done with Daniel Jones. Let's be frank, we know that's how that's going to go. So the Eagles position themselves well to be in that mix for those top 2 and whoever else falls. The question is, they're not going to be alone, and will they have done enough when 2023 comes around if Hurts doesn't develop?
Mike, I think you have a beat on that. Last one from me. I want you to put on, and before I get there, I want to tell everybody to read Mike at footballoutsiders.com. One of the best sites covering the NFL. He does a tremendous job. I want you to put on. You just gave a good explanation of the Eagles and their thought process of kicking one of the draft picks into the 2023 draft. About the quarterbacks and Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I want you to take off your hat right now and put on your Mickey Loomis hat and tell me what the hell Mickey Loomis was thinking when he made that deal. And has, by the way, Mike, as you find your Mickey Loomis hat, by the way, with the trade, they still picked behind the Eagles both times. They picked 16 and 19, and the Eagles are at 15 and 18.
Right.
What explain to me, like I'm a 5-year-old, what the heck Mickey Loomis was thinking?
I've got my Let the Good Times Roll Bourbon Street hat, the closest thing I got.
Very nice.
I mean, that's what I looked at because I first thought, I was like, oh, they're moving ahead of the Eagles. They want to be in position to draft a Jameson Williams. Like, you did not move ahead of the Eagles. You moved ahead of the Chargers, who ain't taking a quarterback, ain't taking a receiver, probably. They're taking a lineman. So a lot of us think they're looking for a left tackle solution. We didn't get far enough for the top left tackles. They're not going to be there for Cross, Neal, Ekwonu, probably not Penning. So what did you do there? So now the theory is they're going to move up again. Maybe for Kenny Pickett, maybe for Charles Cross or Trevor Penning. Maybe we don't know. Maybe they like Sauce Gardner, etc. The problem with that is they also have committed, I think, $280 million in cap money to next year already. Because all they're doing with all their veterans is pushing all their contracts into 2023, 2024. So they got out of cap hell this year by getting into cap hell next year. If they trade up again, so that'll be the first round pick from next year, the 2022 pick from 2024, and this year's 2 first-round picks for one guy, and then they're in cap hell next year, and they won't be able to get out of it next year because they played all their get-out-of-jail-free cards. They're not going to have anybody on their roster. I don't understand this. It's going to be Taysom Hill, and whoever they pick this year, that's going to be their entire roster in 2023, 2024 if they're not careful. So I don't understand it. Everybody I talked to was like it was a lopsided win for the Eagles. Last year when we talked about the deal with the Dolphins to get the first-round pick, it looked like a lopsided deal for the Eagles. Eagles are good at that element of things. They may not be able to develop wide receivers. They may like whiff at times on the draft. They're good at getting these deals and getting themselves in position to either get some success or make the next mistake. And I think at this point the Saints were the victims of that.
All right, you're going to settle the debate between John and myself. We've disagreed on this a couple times during the past week. The trading of Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rumors banning about why Deebo wants out. Right. Is it because he doesn't like the way they use him? Has it just been about the contract? Is he just not a California guy? None of us know for sure. Yeah. But let's say he is not happy with the way that he's being used. Then he just wants to be a wide receiver, doesn't want to be a slash player, just wants to be Devontae Adams in a new spot located somewhere else. John said if that's the case, he'd pass on him. Right. That you can't have a player dictating terms like that.
Right.
Generally, I'm with John and say, no, the coach makes those decisions. Right. But this is such a special and a supreme talent. And I don't think it's an outrageous request. If he had said, I only want you to throw me the ball 25 yards down the field, that'd be outrageous. I don't want to be something that no one else in the National Football League is. To me, is not outrageous. If that's what he needs and I can get him for the right price, both on contract and exchange of draft picks, I would do that and say, all right, you got it, Deebo. Should you allow a player to dictate? There's a lot of empowerment going on in the NFL. This would be a new and different empowerment. If you were a general manager and or a coach of another organization, would you kowtow to Deebo's wishes?
I don't mind a player dictating to a degree. First of all, you said the right price. There's not going to be the right price for Deebo. They're going to gouge anybody who's looking for Deebo. And the idea of don't use me as a running back anymore, I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable when you're going to your current employer. And when you go to your next employer and say, I want to be used a certain way, and you don't think that's going to impact your contract negotiation leverage and your trade value, I think that's ludicrous. You have to take me on my terms. You have to take me minus one of these things that made me a household name and special. Now pay me what I want and give the team what they want. I think that's really in the opposite direction of saying, let's accommodate this guy. And if I'm coming in as I'm Nick Sirianni and I brought this guy in and we handed him, $26 million a year over several years, and we traded away a first-round pick for him, which was probably what it would take. And the moment I call a jet sweep, I'm worried about him looking at me side-eyed and taking the name Eagles off his Instagram. I think I made a huge mistake. So if that's the guy you want, I think the most sensible thing is for the 49ers to accommodate him on that end, because they can talk for real about their actual playbook and what the issues are. And then they can accommodate him financially without giving up draft picks. Everything else is just too high a risk. I'd say, I'll go find Treylon Burks, or I'd go into the draft and I'll get one of these other kids. There's like Wendell Robinson and these other guys who can be slash players, and I'll grab them and I'll get them on their rookie contract.
Mike, great stuff. We appreciate you coming on board. You had about 30 hours. You could do 4 or 5 more mocks between now and the draft. How many you plan on punching out?
4 or 5 more mocks and like 25 more podcasts, and then like 20 more on Friday and 20 more on Saturday and 50 more on Monday.
Yeah. The minute I hit send on the mock, Mike, I want to take it back and I want to change it. But I'm just closing the book.
For entertainment purposes only. That's what these things are about. It's all fanfic, It's not canon.
We have Mike Tanier on for more than just entertainment purposes. The beard scores the entertainment points. We bring him on for the.
I'm jealous of the beard. I can't grow that kind of beard. I'm jealous of that.
Sorry, I'm getting a trim in 2 hours, so I'm pretty excited.
Oh, very good. He's got to be looking proper for the NFL draft. Mike, good stuff. Thanks for hopping on, bud. We'll get you on after the draft comes down, get some evaluation after the fact. Thanks, buddy.
You got to take care. Enjoy the draft, guys.
Mike Tanier with his good time hat on here with us.
Good times roll. No good times for Mickey Loomis. He got ripped as well he should.
We shall see if he pays the price for it on draft night. Drafting behind, as John properly noted, the Eagles not once, but twice.
Yeah.
All right, coming back, we got to put a bow on the show. Counting down to the NFL draft here on Birds 365.
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, fake a mom. Mama go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rib...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, zero sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Speaking of the misinformation season, it is the lead up to the NFL draft. I just got this piece of information. The stateside vodka professor will be in attendance at the JAKIB Media gathering in Atlantic City tomorrow. Now, I don't know if it's true.
That guy.
It's
love
a
that
rumor.
By the way, Jody, I love that commercial.
He's funny.
I think they do a good job with that.
He's good when he's having a cocktail at the end. That is a very good commercial. And he's going to be there tomorrow having a cocktail with you if you're going down to the Oceans in AC to see our draft party tomorrow night. For those of you who won the luxury bus ride down, congratulations. Those of you who just want to stop on by and watch the broadcast, feel free to do so.
Yeah, theoceanac.com for all the information, Jody. By the way, you can watch it. If you can't be there, you could watch it on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You can also watch it on 6abc.com. So it's going to be streaming there as well. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis, Devin Caney, all your JAKIB Media personalities, plus Mike Quick and Seth Joyner. So Eagles legends down at the oceanac.com.
All right, one more piece of misinformation before we get out of here. John McMullen, as soon as it's done, will be heading over to watch Eagles practice day. Eagles getting in some work. They skipped last week, so now they're working double time down. And you're going to be there, right, John?
Yeah, that is misinformation. Yes, that's fake news, Jody. Fake news. Well, they'll be getting in some work. Guys are working out, doing some conditioning. That part's true. The part that I or any other reporter will be there is misinformation.
Sorry about that, Eagles fan. So he tried to talk it into existence. I guess I'm like Lonzo Ball's dad, trying to talk it into existence. Not happening. They will not be sharing it. Maybe a little drip on social media. Put out a picture or two, John, for you.
I think they just gave a happy birthday to Boston Scott.
Ooh.
I think they put out a Boston Scott photo. Might have been yesterday, but yeah, happy birthday to Boston.
Well, I'm glad that the Eagles retained. I thought they were going to have to tender him. They did not. They got him back anyway, so good on the Eagles. We'll see if it's good on the Eagles tomorrow night. All right, we still got a day and change. We'll be back with the end change tomorrow leading up to the NFL draft. I'm in. You in, J-Mac?
Let's do it. 2 more hours, and then it's draft time. 2 more hours with us. You got the draft special. You got the guys on Sports Take. You got the National Football Show. Keep it right here. Then we'll be back on Friday to talk about the draft, Jody. How about that? So
and
you're going to get our first thoughts. That's going to be exciting.
We will be back tomorrow in 2 and 2.
It's the biggest, most important draft in the history of this Philadelphia football franchise. The JAKIB Media Sports 2022 NFL Draft Special. Live on 6abc.com from the Ocean Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Presented by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. IBEW Local 98, Stateside Vodka, United Healthcare, Mesa Law, 6ABC, and Budweiser, the official beer of the Philly sports fan.